Open on black. A low, pressurized hiss. Then the screen blooms orange. Liquid fire, not a flicker but a solid rod, roaring across sand and cinders like a dragon's breath. A silhouette of an M4A3 Sherman squats behind the flame, its main gun replaced by a stubby snout. Cut to a map title, Green Beach, Iwo Jima. February 19, 1945. The 5th assault wave noses in through surf and smoke. 8 odd-looking Shermans, 4 from the 4th Tank Battalion, 4 from the 5th, roll off the LCMs with new plumbing bolted along their hulls. Marines have nicknamed them Zippos, after the lighter that never quits. Somewhere beneath the island's pulverized crust, a general who has studied Tarawa, Saipan and Tinian waits for the old American pattern. He will not get it. The defense that wasn't supposed to break. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi arrived at Iwo Jima with a radical heresy. The beaches cannot be held. Let them land. Make them bleed after they arrive. So he turned an 8-square-mile volcano into an underground beehive. 11 miles of tunnels, about 1,500 caves and pillboxes, 7 tiers under Mount Suribachi, concrete boxes with 4-foot walls, entrances set back and angled to mock satchel charges and portable flamethrowers. 1 in 4 defenders, more than 5,000 men, spent months chipping rock in 86 to 122 degrees in foul air, digging in 5-minute shifts before gas sent them out wheezing. The island didn't just have strong points, it had a circulatory system. Kuribayashi's genius wasn't the tunnels alone, it was the doctrine. No banzai charges, no waste on the sand. Pull back, force the Marines to fight down into rock. He knew the American kit, M1 and M2 portable flamethrowers spitting 40 to 60 feet, Bangalore torpedoes 75 mm HE. He measured his corridors accordingly, long throats before living chambers, vent shafts separated and baffled, positions linked like subway stops so a blown E. D+2. The first pour, by February 21st, D+2. Marines clawing up Suribachi's eastern skirts had learned the cave catechism. Suppress, rush, toss a charge, take casualties, repeat. Then a flame Sherman named Satan trundled to about 150 yards. At 14:37, its gunner depressed and thumbed the trigger. The projector coughed once, then turned the hillside into a waterfall of light. On the far slope, Japanese defenders discovered physics outvotes doctrine. Radiant heat burns skin you thought was hidden. CO and O2 depletion make thinking slow and legs treacherous. Thermal expansion pops rock you trusted. Ammunition cooked off like popcorn going feral. Where ordinary flamethrowers had forced men back from entrances, the Zippo erased the inside. Caves designed to defeat bullets and blast proved ideal for fire. Baffles and right angles that stopped shrapnel became sluices for burning liquid. Flame goes where bullets can't, a Marine would say later. Kuribayashi's elegant geometry inverted in a day. The system, not just the tank. It wasn't just a gadget, it was a method. Tank Battalion SOP evolved in hours. Pairs, 1 flame Sherman, 1 gun tank for cover. Approach. Creep to effective range, let infantry and guns pin visible firing slits. Pour, 30 to 40-second bursts, sweeping left to right, then high to low to catch vent lips. Displace, pull off line before counterfire can walk rounds up the burn trail. Listen, secondary detonations tell you where the tunnels fed, an acoustic map in chaos. Seabees hardened Zippos as they learned, dust-chewed igniters got redundant electric starters. Thin plates became welded skirts. Crews added spray bars to wash sticky napalm off their own hulls if a splash came back ugly. Fuel mixes tweaked by the hour. Some drivers liked a touch of diesel for heavier smoke that wormed into vents. Others stayed with hot gasoline-rich blends to keep flame koto, errant at longer throws. By D+4, the rhythm felt practiced. The 28th Marines stormed Suribachi's upper slopes with Shermans hissing and roaring alongside. Records list 47 cave mouths neutralized in a single push, 3 Marines wounded in the armor escort, and an estimated hundreds of defenders either killed or driven into deeper galleries that were, in minutes, uninhabitable. That is not a small tactical win. It is an inversion of Pacific cave arithmetic. Hono no kuruma. When spirit meets chemistry, interception teams on the beach, Frupak radio hands, snagged Japanese traffic that ran on panic and plain sense. All units, flame tanks are priority targets. Evacuate forward caves when flame tanks approach. Request countermeasures immediately. Then, the sentence commanders dread: permission for final charge. Men who had drilled themselves to die in place began moving before the tanks even came into view. Prisoners, yes, on Iwo Jima, told interrogators they surrendered to avoid being burned alive. Marines counted 216 prisoners by battle's end, an unprecedented number in the Central Pacific. The weapon didn't just kill, it collapsed belief. That psychological effect did as much work as the heat. Japanese manuals had given portable flamethrowers a paragraph or two. Zippos weren't in the book. The rumor mill did what rumors do under trauma. Ranges grew in stories, limitations shrank. In a cruel way, overestimation became a force multiplier. The island fights back and fails. Colonel Baron Takechi Nishi, Olympic gold equestrian turned tank regiment commander, threw his remaining Type 97s at the strange Shermans. Their 57mm guns bruised Zippo plates, but couldn't crack them before American tanks and bazookas snapped back. The duel was brief. Nishi's armor died in minutes. Japanese gunners tried to pick igniters, hoses, and projector heads. Zippos, now wise, hid their says behind berms and lobbed flame onto parapets from standoff ranges. When a hose was cut, crews backed out, swapped assemblies, returned. The Seabees pipeline behind them, mixing, storage, distribution, kept dragon mouths fed, 5,000 to 10,000 gallons a day at peak operations. That is industrial strength breathing through a turret. The science of horror. If you strip out the flags and the names, what remains is physics. Temperature 2000 degrees Celsius sustains combustion on stone surfaces long enough to sterilize a space. Oxygen, flame consumes O2, replacing it with CO and CO2. Unconsciousness arrives before flame does. Flow. Napalm isn't a spray. It's liquid with memory for gravity, wicking along cracks and seams. Structure. Rapid heating fractures basalt, collapses unsupported roofs, seals exits you planned to use. That last line matters. A plan that counts on mobility within tunnels dies when exits scorch shut. Men who would have counterattacked through lateral shafts found themselves sealed by their own engineering. New eyes for a hidden enemy. By March's second week, the fight against Iwo's geology added a third dimension: seismic detection. Naval technicians rolled in oil exploration gear, geophones and amps to listen for voids beneath the surface. Zippo crews suddenly had target folders with depth estimates. Here's a hollow, here's a shaft, here's where you pour and let gravity do the rest. Major General Graves Erskine called it three-dimensional warfare: above, at, and inside ground. A different kind of cost. None of this came free. Zippo crews absorbed a moral load other tankers didn't carry. You see what you're doing through view slits and periscope mirrors. You hear it as oxygen leaves a space. Chaplains reported more visits from flame crews. VA case files later noted higher stress among them. The calculus, do this to save platoons, was clear. Clarity doesn't cancel weight. And still the math writes itself in columns a rifleman can understand. Before Zippos, 12 men and explosives for one hole, casualties expect. Ed, repeat until the company is a ghost. With Zippos, 2 tanks and a squad, multiple mouths knocked shut in an hour. The weapon didn't just shorten assaults, it changed the kind of courage required. Less about charging a slit, more about holding nerves under a machine's roar while you guard its flanks. Kuribayashi's last admission. Somewhere deep under North Iwo near the end, Kuribayashi sent a final message. Enemy flame tanks have neutralized our cave defenses. Positions built in months are destroyed in minutes. American technology has overcome Japanese spirit. It reads like surrender of an idea. He had designed a defense to outthink American habits. The Americans didn't change habits. They changed tools. When Marines raised a flag atop Suribachi on February the 23rd, it crowned more than a hill. It marked a doctrinal break. Ever since the Pacific War turned into bunker and cave arithmetic, commanders had traded lives for yards in a grim routine. Zippos cut that bargain in half. We'll go where the flame goes, down the slopes into the meat grinder ridges, Hill 382, 362A, the amphitheater. Watch tactics evolve hour by hour, see vent shafts turned into chimneys, underground cities mapped by smoke, and a garrison's will cascade into flight. We'll also follow the fuel, how Seabees built a frontline napalm industry under fire, because a dragon's breath is only as long as its supply chain. Daylight on D+4 is different. The cliff faces are streaked with black where flame ran downward, then outward along seams, a geology lesson written in soot. The Marines push beyond Suribachi into a northern maze with names that sound like a bad joke. Meat Grinder, Turkey Knob, Hill 382, Hill 362A, the amphitheater. Every draw is a geometry trap. Every crest, a vent. A playbook in motion. The flame tank playbook is now muscle memory, but the island is teaching new chapters. Vent-first doctrine. Rather than wasting fire at obvious mouths, Zippos sweep vent lips and drainage cuts, letting gravity snake flame beneath the surface. Within seconds, smoke flags pop from slits nobody knew existed, painting an underground map in grey. Rifle platoons adjust by instinct, sprinting to catch men spewing from side exits, grenades primed for stunned survivors. Splash technique. Gunners deliberately overshoot a mouth so the stream cascades down rock into hidden lower cuts, multiplying reach. The camera sees a waterfall of flame. Inside, a maze lights from walls outward. Bursts and breaths. Crews learn to pulse fire to pulse oxygen, short blasts to ignite, pause to draw fresh air deeper into the system, then blast again. It's ugly science, and it works. The buddy system. A gun tank shadow keeps Zippos alive. When a Type 96 at gun barks from a scrub patch, the 75mm answers while the flame tank pivots back behind a fold and waits for a hand signal. 2 fingers for clear, sealed by expansion. Engineers notice glazed, cracked mouths where stone has expanded and fused. A cave that looked reoccupiable at dawn becomes a tomb by lunch. On February 26th, the 3rd Marine Division lines up on Hill 382's defensive web. Captured Japanese engineering diagrams show stacked galleries, firing cells fed by trunk tunnels. The order of the day is antiseptic. Vent attacks first, mouths second, mop-up after. The first Zippo flame touches a vent. Smoke puffs from dozens of seams across the hill, an entire underground district coughing at once. By noon, patrols find abandoned rooms stocked with rice and ammunition, unthinkable on Tarawa or Saipan. Marines write a new word in their field notebooks: cascade. Not collapse from a single blow, but a stepwise failure of will as WWII. Order of Zippos outruns the tanks themselves. The enemy's story breaks, interrogations and captured messages sketch the other side's slide. On the morning of February 22nd, an officer requests immediate countermeasures. By afternoon, he's labeling flame tanks priority targets. Next day at dawn, evacuate forward caves when flame tanks approach. And that night, a request for permission to charge. That sequence is a heartbeat of defensive doctrine dying. Defend, adjust, delay, break. Prisoners don't come in clusters with hands high. They come in ones and twos, coughing, faces glazed with soot streaks where tears carved white lines. A translator hears the new vocabulary: Oni no Hi, devil's fire; Ryu no Iki, dragon's breath; Hono no Kuruma, chariot of fire. Concepts of honorable death, a bullet, a final rush, don't map to asphyxiation in the dark. Men trained for one kind of end find themselves choosing a different ending: surrender. The industrial dragon. Behind every burst is a chain: chemical plants, stateside cooking napalm components, tank farms and fuel bladders afloat, Seabees ashore throwing up mixing stations with agitators and baffles, building underground storage to protect from shelling, laying pipeline forward. Daily consumption spikes at 5,000, 10,000 gallons for 8 tanks. You don't feed that from jerry cans. The front line turns into a moving refinery: fumes, funnels, dead reckoning. A platoon runner who used to ask for ammo now carries pressure readings on a grease-stained card. Seabees improvise again: dust screens to protect igniters from volcanic grit, quick-change nozzle trees for crews to swap projector heads in the open, a canvas and wood fume hood to keep mixing volatile napalm under constant wind. They even plumb a flush line so tanks can purge lines with raw gasoline if napalm threatens to harden in hoses after a long idle. When the island fights back again, countermeasures get tried. Snipers aim for hose couplings. Zippos add improvised shrouds. At guns bracket projector heads, gunners learn peaking fire, exposing the snout. Baron Nishi's last tanks die fast, outranged, out-armored, outsighted. His own death in a cave in the north becomes a parable. The island eats its best. The numbers you can feel, the zip of statistics can hide pain, but here they sharpen it. In past cave fights, Marines paid 20–30% casualties per position. On Iwo, one flame tank team can erase multiple mouths in an hour with minimal losses. During the Suribachi summit day, one battalion reports 47 caves neutralized with 3 wounded tank crewmen. Extrapolate that across 36 days, and the saved lives number in the thousands. Riflemen who keep both lungs, corpsmen who don't sprint into fire, engineers who get to grow old. The science keeps teaching. The 43rd Chemical Laboratory Company refines fuel mid-battle. More aluminum salts for stick, less for flow, a dash of diesel for smoke density. They learn the mix matters by mission. Short throws into shallow cuts, go hot. Long lobs across a ravine to a vent, go sticky. Crews can tell with a glance at a stream's cohesion if the batch is right. A bad mix is a short candle. A good one is a river. And the seismic gear upgrades too. Geophones don't just find voids, they time echoes to infer depth and size. Flame tank commanders start working with target packages. Burn here to pull air from there, then roll to point B and finish. The dance becomes predictive instead of reactive. The cost you don't see on maps, talk to flame crews after. They'll tell you about sounds: a cave's draw when you first light, a tunnel's moan when oxygen runs, the sudden stillness when it doesn't. Chaplains note a line outside their tents that is heavier with tankers who smell of gasoline and soot. Leaders make rotations shorter for Zippo drivers. They start matching crews with chaplain calls, a primitive version of what we'd later call combat stress mitigation. Marines also feel the moral abrasion. We are burning men. The counter-argument is brutally honest. The tunnels are designed to outlast bullets. Without flame, we feed those tunnels with youth. The men who'd carry flamethrower backpacks onto pillboxes, Herschel, Woody Williams among them, speak with the same weight. Fire goes where bullets can't. It saves our own. That doesn't make it easy. The enemy's last word, near March's end, a final message from the deep. American flame tanks have nullified our caves, months of labor, minutes of destruction. Kuribayashi understands that technology times industry makes spirit irrelevant in certain geometries. He never stopped believing in his men. He stopped believing that rock beats chemistry. By March 2nd, at Motoyama No. 2, Marines are doing something new. Prep by flame, grid by grid, then infantry advance into positions already vacated. Rice still warm, boots still lined at a doorway, rifles stacked like a ghost unit took a smoke break and didn't return. You can only explain that with belief breaking before bodies. By March 10th, three-dimensional warfare is routine. Flame eats vents, seismic ears read the island, infantry sweeps the surface, engineers collapse what's left. The island, designed to be a porcupine, has learned what porcupines learn around fire. Quills don't matter when the flame is everywhere at once. In Part 3, we take the lesson off Iwo into Okinawa, where a whole 713th Flame Tank Battalion arrives with refined kit, into staff rooms planning Operation Downfall with pages labelled Vastly Expanded Flamethrower Armour, into hospitals treating burns and smoke, into legal memos proving flame is lawful against fortifications, and into reunions where former enemies stand on scorched stone and call each other human. The battle ends on March 26, 1945. Of roughly 21,000 Japanese defenders, nearly 20,000 die. Americans tally 6,140 KIA and 17,913 WIA, losses that would have been far worse in a cave-by-cave war fought without flame armor. The island, now Ioto in Japanese usage, keeps its scars. Some cave mouths still wear black lips. But the story doesn't stop where the flag stops snapping. The method leaves Iwo on LST decks. Okinawa, the Flame Battalion arrives. On April 1st, the largest amphibious operation of the Pacific lands on Okinawa's Hagushi beaches. Waiting inland, a defense stretched across ridges and limestone karst that makes Iwo look like a pilot episode. But now the Americans bring a dedicated unit, the 713th Flamethrower Tank Battalion. Lessons are baked into hardware, improved ignition assemblies sealed against dust and rain, armoured hose runs and quick-change couplings. Dedicated fuel logistics, not ad hoc. Tank farms, mixing sheds, convoys with MP escorts like they're hauling gold. Doctrine cards at platoon HQ, vent first, splash technique, pulse breath cycles, seismic queuing. Japanese staff officer Hiromichi Yahara has read everything he can about Iwo. He orders water reservoirs in caves, longer offsets, more doors. It will not matter enough. Where fire meets porous limestone, the rock wicks and perspires heat along channels, making big spaces slow cook. Okinawa surrenders more prisoners than Iwo, and again, many cite flame as the point where courage bent. Downfall. Without the downfall, in Washington, while Okinawa rages, planners sketch Operation Downfall, Kyushu first, Olympic Honshu, later Coronet. Annexes speak quietly but firmly, ramp up flamethrower tank production dramatically, create organic chemical service at corpse level, pre-build fuel pipelines ashore from ports to forward assembly areas. In the margins, an officer pencils, IWO, OKI experience, caves will be legion. Those annexes would be overtaken by Hiroshima and Nagasaki and surrender. But their existence proves the point. Zippos didn't just change one battle, they changed invasion math. Law, medicine, morals. You'll sometimes hear arguments that flame weapons are illegal. In 1945 they were not. The Hague and Geneva texts at the time did not prescribe flamethrowers against military fortifications. Commanders sought legal opinions anyway. Judge advocates answered, permitted against combatants in defences, prohibited against civilians. Post-war tribunals did not pursue flamethrower use as a crime. Legality is not morality. Shipboard surgeons and hospital ship logs, e.g. USS Samaritan, fill with burns and smoke inhalation. Some Japanese survivors first refused care, ashamed to be alive after dishonorable survival. Nurses wrote about gentle battles to convince men that living was not betrayal. American chaplains reported higher counseling among Zippo crews, who knew, every time they flipped to safety, what the next 30 seconds meant inside a hill. A technology family tree. Iwo's flame lineage doesn't end with the war. Korea sees flame armor again. Vietnam sees mechanized and man-portable flame. Modern thermobaric munitions take the physics, fuel plus oxygen plus confinement, and swap liquid for aerosol and blast. The doctrine stays. Confined spaces are your enemy until you make the space itself the weapon. Tunnel and cave manuals in use today, classified and unclassified, cite the Iwo solution set. Vent identification, flow mapping by smoke, multi-axis application, and, crucially, the logistics layer. Tools without fuel are stories. Records, film, and memory. The Marine Corps History Division holds unit diaries that read like blueprints. Gallons per day, nozzle swaps, vent grids. National Archives reels show ordnance bluejackets and Army cameramen catching lipsticked flames, licking into spots the camera cannot follow. Still photographs freeze streams mid-air, a physics lesson caught by a shutter. Japanese documents found later echo the American notes with an ache. Our air that betrayed us. Caves we loved that killed us. Kuribayashi's line, "Technology overcomes spirit," has become a thesis sentence in staff colleges. Never build a doctrine on courage alone. Reconciliation on scorched ground. Beginning in 1970, Iwo veterans, American and Japanese, held reunion of honor ceremonies. Men who once hunted each other now traced routes on maps together, pointing, "Here we poured flame. Here we fled around a bend. Here my friend died." At the 40th in 1985, testimonies crossed languages without translators, eye contact and a hand on a forearm. At the 80th in 2025, only a handful of Americans stood on the black sand. Their words, recorded, carry two truths with equal weight. We saved our own. We carry what it cost. What the numbers meant. The end totals of Iwo, 36 days, tied £20,000. Japanese dead, 216 prisoners, 6,140 Americans killed, are concrete. The counterfactual is harder but real. Without flame armor, every cave is a platoon bill, every vent a squad memorial. The line that matters isn't just "we took Hill 382, it's "we took it with fewer funerals." The lesson that outlives the jet of fire. Strip the paint off every anecdote, and you're left with an equation. Industrial capacity, X applied science. X, adaptable doctrine, E equals positional advantage erased. Kuribayashi built a defense to defeat the last American template. The Americans changed the template. Courage didn't disappear on either side. It became less decisive than chemistry, pressure vessels, and Seabees plumbing. If you want the short moral for modern war, don't make a religion of your fortifications, your code, or your last victory. Somewhere, someone is welding a hose to a turret, and when they arrive, the rock won't save you. Belief is not a bunker. The only defense that scales is an institution that admits what works today and discards what doesn't, even if the discard hurts pride. On Iwo Jima, liquid fire showed how fast the ground under doctrine can melt. The Japanese called the tanks Hono no Kuruma, chariots of fire, not because they were mythic, but because they felt like inevitability. And yet, the final image isn't the fire. It's a cave mouth, blackened, silent, opening to ocean wind. A former defender stands at the edge, 80 years older, and says softly to his American counterpart, "We were brave." The Marine nods. "You were. And we were lucky we had the tools." Then they look at the scorch and agree on the only thing that matters after the smoke. Never again, if we can help it.